Hi, everyone. I'm Ellie Dehoney with Research America, and I'm glad to welcome you to our Alliance member meeting. Before I introduce our special guest, just a bit of housekeeping that you're probably bored with by now. Um, we're using Zoom's webinar format, so you're all on mute for now. But please type questions into the Q&A box at any time, and my colleague Terry Schwartzbeck will ask them during the Q&A part of the session. Now, I am so pleased to introduce today's guest speakers, who I'm sure most of you know. Sherie Santos, who is the Health Policy Director for Congresswoman Diana DeGette, and Mark Ratner, who is the Deputy Chief of Staff for Congressman Fred Upton. Sherie Lou and Mark, thank you so much for what you do individually and together on behalf of your bosses to bolster COVID-19 eroded research funding, and in so many other ways, maximize the pace of medical and public health progress. It's not hyperbole to say that your efforts to champion that progress have saved lives. So let me turn to you. Sherie Lou, maybe you'd like to start, and if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about the RISE Act, 21st Century Cures 2.0, kind of whatever is on your agenda, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Ellie. Well, to start off, for those that I don't know, my name is Sherie Lou Santos, like Ellie mentioned, and I'm the current Health Policy Director for Congresswoman DeGette. I'm very pleased to be here today with you all, as well as with my partner in crime, actually, Mark Ratner. We've been working together for quite some time, and really excited to see a lot of our bosses' shared initiatives moving forward. So just kind of as a little bit of an overview, and Mark, feel free to chime in whenever you want. Both Congresswoman DeGette and Congressman Upton have been teaming up to work on two really big and exciting priorities that we are really looking to see across the finish line. One of them, which we've been talking about for quite some time now, is an initiative we're calling Cures 2.0, which I'm sure, as you all know, is kind of that next iteration of the 21st Century Cures Act that passed a few years ago. And I think, generally speaking, we're really trying to look at how to continue that cycle of innovation, right? So 21st Century Cures had a lot of different provisions on trying to get innovation out into the world, and we have heard over and over again, time and time again, that there are a lot of different barriers that can't quite let those innovations get to patients, whether it's on the coverage side, whether it's on the provider side, whatever it be. So we're really trying to figure out that piece. I think that's going to be a large push. And I think, and Mark can kick me if I'm totally wrong on this point, but I think there's a lot of lessons learned that we have been seeing throughout the past year that we want to try our best to include within Cures, as long as it's within that guiding framework and the spirit of Cures that we had kind of put together in, I'd say, the concept paper that we released almost or just under a year ago. So that's just kind of a general overview on Cures. I don't want to take up too much time, but I want to let Mark introduce himself, add anything else on Cures, and then maybe add a little bit more on the RISE Act.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Sherie Lou. I think you said it all. But I'm happy to chip in here. For those that don't know me, my name is Mark Ratner. I'm Deputy Chief of Staff for Fred Upton. I've been working for Fred for about 14 years now, which is an eternity on Capitol Hill, as you know. So I was around for the first iteration of 21st Century Cures back when Fred was chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee, and I know he and Mrs. DeGette, even before that, had a great working relationship and worked on a number of initiatives together. So it was an easy one for him to go back, and the Odyssey took about 3 years from conception to completion. We did a lot, and Research America was very involved in that, did a lot of meetings, a lot of roundtables. We did a road show. We went to Ms. DeGette's district. We went to my boss's district. We went to, I believe, Texas, Massachusetts, California, a number of different places that unfortunately, we're not able to travel as much during the pandemic. So we really haven't had a lot, had much of an opportunity, but though we have had a lot of virtual events like this one. And we were able to. It was how legislation should get done. We heard from the stakeholders. We heard from the people that were infected, whether it was researchers, whether it was providers, whether it was patient groups, academia, venture capital, manufacturers. What do you need to help bring the apparatus for health research into the 21st century to make to expedite the approval of drugs and devices and everything else. And I think by and large, we passed a very good bill. Now, as Sherie Lou said, there were a lot of things that we sort of learned as the bill is being implemented. There are things that we can complement, things that we can add to it that I think are reflected in our white paper. And also the other thing that we really wanted to focus here on with cures is that the first cures was really about the discovery and development of new drugs, devices, treatments, and cures too, while adding on the discovery and development side is going to be more focused on getting these treatments into the hands of patients and sort of bridging that gap, through CMS and other means, helping with trials, diversity in trials, in things like that, into actually getting the treatments in the hands of patients. So that's what we're doing there. And happy to answer any questions you may have. I know you've seen our white paper. We're plugging away now on getting language together on this. I like to joke around that for those of you who have dealt with Ledge Council, they're a little backlogged right now. So we expect to draft back sometime in the 124th Congress. So at any rate, so that's where we are in cures. The other big bill that we're working on together is the RISE Act. COVID has really made, I don't have to tell you, everybody's lives difficult in a number of ways, but especially, in the research community, there's a lot of good research that was stopped. There's a lot of good research that happened during COVID, on vaccines and therapeutics and all that, but there was a lot of research on other stuff was sort of stopped in its tracks. So we need to restore the momentum that we had, partially because of 21st Century Cures, the first one, with all this great research that was happening. And so that's why, it was easy for us to get together and do the RISE Act. We got our Senate partners now. We were hoping to get it across the finish line in the last Congress. Didn't happen, but we introduced this thing last month, and we're hopeful that we can get it done pretty quickly here. So with that, Ellie, I'll turn it back to you, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great. I'll just ask a couple, and then we have audience questions coming in. So in terms of the RISE Act, what do you perceive as the path forward and the intersection potentially with supplemental funding? Are you thinking it's going to go through the committee process or be attached to another bill? And then how does that intersect with the process of securing supplemental dollars?
Yeah, I could take a stab at that. For now, we are kind of looking forward on how it would go through. To be quite honest, I think I think the best path forward for it, and Mark, would be happy to hear your thoughts as well, would be to include it in another package outside of this reconciliation bill. At least from my conversations and my boss's conversations on the RISE Act, I haven't heard of a lot of policy concern. It's a lot more of like, how can we get this moving, on what vehicle, how can we get the funds, etc. I can say the House had a really positive hearing in the Science and Technology Committee. I believe that was this week. So that was a really positive momentum, and really looking forward to continuing the progress that we have and momentum.
That's absolutely terrific news. This has been it's been an uphill battle. And I think there's so many priorities for COVID response that it's hard to juggle. But I think, it's been a struggle to convey what is real. And that is that we are losing ground in two ways. One is through all these gaps, and the other is that NIH is trying to fill some of them, which is diverting from current year research. So thank you so much, not only for NIH, but for trying to get dollars for other agencies and for patient organizations and all of what you're doing. I have a gazillion questions, but Terry, I know that I see them in the Q&A, so let me turn to you.
Yeah, sure. Lots of questions coming in, and to reminder to folks, you can type those into the Q&A box. First question about RISE. Any chance it could be added to another package, such as something related to research infrastructure, related to equipment and human capital?
I'd probably defer to Sherie Lou on this one since they're in the majority. But I think that I would think it probably moves as part of a larger package. I don't know what that package may be. It's our hope, at least. I'm sure it would be bipartisan, obviously. But I think something like this, when it moves, it's probably moves as part of a larger package. We would just hope it would be sooner rather than later if it does. I don't know if you really, because this is at the end of the day we're giving money, $25 billion, so maybe it's part of some appropriations deal that happens. It's, I think March is the date we're looking at there. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I would hope it would be part of that maybe. Yeah, I think moving it on its own would be harder than part of a package. But I'll again defer to Sherie Lou.
Yeah, I think the only thing to add to that from my boss's perspective is we're not locked tight on a specific kind of vehicle to move forward. I think it's safe to say whatever vehicle we see where there is potential, we are going to try our damnedest to get it through with that vehicle. So I think, we're excited to move forward with Rep. Upton on that front.
Great. And another question related to Cures 2.0. Do you expect any language to be specific to NIH?
We don't have anything really in our white paper right now. We have talked to NIH. We have talked to Dr. Collins, and there are a couple of things that we're sort of kicking around. Dr. Collins has come to us and said that there are a few things that maybe from Cures 1, as far as implementation, we need some statutory updates. So while there isn't anything in our white paper right now, we're looking at some NIH stuff, and we'd be happy to take any suggestions that you may have there. Yeah.
Terry, can I just ask a follow-on question? Health services research through ARC. If you think about the dissemination of results to reach particularly underserved communities, it just seems like an underutilized asset. Is there a way to build that in? And can we help in any way with that for you?
Yeah, really appreciate that question. Both Representative Upton and Representative DeGette actually had a really fruitful couple conversations with ARC, I believe at the end of last year. So I think, just like Mark said, with the NIH front, while there isn't anything in the white paper right now specifically for ARC, I think, the conversations are happening. I think there's potential for that intersection. So any ideas that you all have that might be helpful, and as we continue our conversations with ARC, would be open to those ideas.
Great. Another question's coming in. Is the administration hearing the message, and have you had any discussions with the administration about Cures 2.0 and this whole issue around the need for funding to restart research and clinical trials? In particular, there's a lot of concern around diversity in clinical trials, and we know that clinical trial accrual has actually been declining. Our own polling data has actually even shown that. There's a real concern about that.
So we have a whole section about diversity in clinical trials in the bill, and that's actually one thing. So we were trying to get some of this language moved in not this COVID package, but the last one, and unfortunately, that cake was sort of baked, and there was the deal that was struck, but that was part of what we were trying to get in there. We think diversity in clinical trials is something that's very important. We have things that we think we can do right away, like, you know, make Medicaid eligible to pay for trial associated costs, things like that, because we need that. And so we think that's important. As far as a question on the administration, we haven't in Upton's off. We haven't had any conversations yet with the current administration. I'll let Sherie Lou answer for Ms. DeGette. But both of our bosses, I know we met. Well, I guess you know Francis Collins counts as the current administration because he's still there. So we have met with him. But we did meet with you know Dr. Hahn, Dr. Collins, Dr. Redfield, ARC, other folks. Well, I guess ARC is the same too, but other folks in the previous administration. So we've made sure to do that, but I still think, you know, we're 24 days or 26 days, or actually just about 30 days into this administration. So we still need to meet with them.
Yeah, I would just second that in that, you know, Representative DeGette hasn't personally met with any of the current administration. It's still pretty new and there's a lot of confirmation hearings that are still happening right now. So there are some spaces that we don't know who to meet with quite yet, but it definitely is on our to-do list, and that's definitely in regards to Cures 2.0, specifically with the clinical trials diversity, as Mark mentioned. It is a piece of Cures 2.0 that we're very excited to pursue. But in terms of the RISE Act, and whether the administration is hearing that message, I actually think it might be helpful for, you know, an external push from folks to collaborate and reach out to the Biden administration to make that heard. It's always better for messages to be relayed from all different perspectives.
Yes.
So if, you know, you all would be so kind as to do something like that, I don't think it would hurt. I think it would be helpful to our initiative.
Perfect. Consider it done. We'll collaborate and do it.
Great. Another question coming in regarding Cures 2.0. Are you prioritizing or seeing any interest in gene and cell therapy research, regulation, and payment policies?
Yes. Short answer. It's in our, I believe we have a section in our concept paper on that. I don't have it in front of me, but I know it's something that we've discussed, and we have stuff or you know on paper on that. So that is something, you know, that's really important. It's you know, the leading edge of a lot of, you know, new and exciting cures, and you know, we need to set a regulatory you know, authority around that, and also figure out you know, a good payment model for that through CMS. So.
Great. And for folks who have been asking, the white paper, it has been posted to the chat. So if you want to read while you listen, feel free, or at least look at it afterwards.
And I just wanted to add on the gene therapy and gene, you know, that it's so great you guys are involved. I think one thing that's so important is how to craft payment models that reach diverse communities and underserved communities with these breakthroughs, because they are so expensive to develop and manufacture. But we want to make sure that there's broad access. So thank you for your involvement in that. Terry, I interrupted you. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Great. Another question about the Centers of Excellence program at FDA. Is there expectation that will continue?
I think that's something that's come up a couple times in a couple of different conversations that Mark and I have had as we continue to discuss Cures 2.0. I'd say, as many of you all know, you know, the Centers of Excellence that was created within 21st Century Cures was by far a great success. But I do want to point out that statutorily, we did not quite make things so prescriptive. So we have had a lot of interest in, you know, creating other centers of excellence or for X, Y, and Z type of center. While we are definitely open to certain things like that, you know, I think right now we're looking at having conversations, FDA having conversations with folks on where the need may be. And then if, let's say, a center of excellence were to be put up, let's say within FDA, if that would be an FDA decision, I think we'd be open to that. So that's kind of where the conversations are at this time.
Yeah, Sherie, Lou, and I think the last thing we did together in person was last February. We spoke together at the anniversary of the Oncology Center of Excellence over at FDA, and we sort of spoke to this, and I would just sort of echo what she said, and we're open to more of these centers of excellence. We're a little wary of like she said, being prescriptive and sort of disease or condition specific on that, because we did a good job, I think, in the first cures of staying away from that to keep everybody sort of rowing in the same direction. So but any ideas that you may have on ways that we can improve on the centers of excellence, authorization we did in the first cures, or add to that, we would, definitely be open to that.
Do we have other questions, Terry?
Yeah, so actually, just a couple more. First of all, I think you mentioned that if the audience has ideas about Cures 2.0, it's not too late to get them to you. And if so, what's the best vehicle for that?
We have an email address, cures2@mail.house.gov. Cures the number 2 at mail.house.gov. Also, I know Ellie and Sarah and everybody have our email addresses, so we can take that. But again, we are formulating language right now. I will say that it's never too late for a good idea. But we are getting the ball rolling on this, so the sooner the better, and also the more comprehensive, like the closer to legislative language, the better. We don't Cures 1, Fred was chairman, and we had a giant health team working on it, and now we don't have the same sort of person power on that, so
And the only
any
thing,
help you may give. Yeah, sorry.
yeah, the only thing I would want to add to that is, we've been talking about, we're already getting the ball rolling on legislative language, and we've been talking about legislative counsel, but we are envisioning that whatever next iteration of public facing material on Cures 2.0, we are envisioning it to be more of a discussion draft versus introduced language. So with discussion drafts, as you all know, the door is not closed. Sometimes, in fact, it might actually be easier to respond to something that's already on paper in forms of legislative language than kind of thinking so abstractly. So I think the door is definitely still open. If y'all want to send things over to cures2@mail.house.gov, we'd be happy to read that and look that over. For those that already have sent comments, feedback, ideas, legislative language, especially since we dropped the white paper back in April, we have read that. Have no fear. Even if I did not respond to you, we have read it. So, definitely trying to work our best with our, team of 2 here on trying to get this very robust package together.
Terrific.
Okay,
Terry,
great. Yeah, and actually just one more before I think I can hand it back to you, Ellie. Just in general, your bosses are so influential in the priority that Congress is assigning to faster medical and public health progress. Any advice for advocates in general about how to keep the message going, keep the fires lit, convince Congress that we need to be putting more, not less, into combating these threats like COVID?
I mean, I think real world examples. I think showing. I know there are probably a lot. Obviously a lot of research institutions that are on this call, and showing the good work that your institutions do in the different members districts. And not to toot our own horn here, but talk about all the great things that Cures 1 did. And say so. Show them, see, we were able to do this. It was a giant bipartisan bill. It got done. And it goes to show that more can get done. So sorry if that's a little vague, but I honestly think that that's probably the best thing that you can do, and utilize organizations like Research America who are good at getting that message out.
I think your bosses, with your support, exemplify that. And you had mentioned this, but I just can't even imagine. I just remember the number of times they were in front of the public, in front of patients, making the case. It had 9 lives, and every life they said, this isn't going to end. We're just going to get out there and talk about it more to more people. And it was just incredible advocacy that we kind of keep in our heads with our advocacy work. Along those lines, you know, when you were working on a COVID specific piece of Cures 2.0, to me, it helped motivate and get more of us in the audience here, I think, thinking about the Never Again Commission and the notion that we don't want this moment to pass without change. And do you think that there are prospects for one of these commissions to actually be stood up this year? Have you heard anything or?
I'll start. I'll let you know, Sherie Lou give her thoughts. I would just say that I would hope if there is a commission, and we would support a commission, that it would be completely bipartisan, like the 9/11 Commission was, and not have you know, one party with more votes than the other. I think it's something that's neat. You know, this could be something that's needed. And you know, we need to make sure that like you said, never again, that we're, you know, that we're able to stand up our very robust medical research infrastructure and you know, surveillance and all that other stuff to make sure that it doesn't happen again. But I'll kick it over to Sherie Lou.
Yeah, I mean, I would second that. Both of our bosses work extremely bipartisan, and you know, I think the intent of something like that type of commission would be very widely supported. I personally have not heard of any kind of details on when and if a commission like so you know, would really come to fruition. But you know, would definitely keeping an eye out on that.
Terrific. I know we promised you probably less, that you're going to be here less time than you've been with us. Terry, is there one more question we can ask you, or you?
Yeah, one more just popped up. Does the RISE Act include supplemental funding for small businesses such as SBIR?
That's a good question, Mark.
I don't
recollection, I don't think so.
I don't think so. So yeah, I'm not the staffer actually working on the RISE Act in our office, so I would have to go back and look. I don't believe it does, though.
As I recall, forgive me, and I could be totally wrong, that NIH at least would have some flexibility to move money where it's needed, for example, to independent clinical trial sites, and they would be small businesses. So I think that was baked in. I know that was the vision.
That was something that was important to my boss, actually, too.
As I recall,
these independent sites, and then also, you know, the nonprofits and stuff like that. So absolutely.
Well, you guys, as always, have been wonderful and generous with your time, and thank you for what you do and who you are. And I just want to say to our audience, you probably heard, I heard loud and clear, we've got to do some advocacy with the administration. We'll be back to you all very shortly, whether it's a sign-on letter or you just take your ideas. Maybe we should work across community with other coalitions, but we'll do it fast. So what you're seeing now is our next 3 special guests for our Alliance member meetings. And listen, thank you for being part of the Alliance. If you are joining us and are not part of the Alliance, your organization, come on board. I think Sherie Lou and Mark can verify that the broader our network is, the more representation we have across the country and across the ecosystem, the better able we are to do our jobs, and that is advocacy. So thanks to you all, and we'll just take it, say goodbye there. Thanks to you all.
Thanks.
Appreciate
Thanks for
it
having
so
us.
much, Mark and Sherie Lou.
Thank you so much. Have a good one, all.
Thanks.
Bye.